basic head bob. Ready, go.
I'm off center like Ed Fallon all of a sudden. What is his deal with that? The camera is just kind of aimed off. All right. Welcome to a beautiful spring day here in Des Moines. It's moving. Better. See, how does my North Primer working these days? Not too bad. Good. And phone number is 244-0077. Email me, radiobradshaw@gmail.com, and follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/radiobradshaw. Register's just straight out trolling this morning. Romney wins Iowa on election day. Yeah. Unfortunately, we've been casting ballots weeks prior. Just goes to show you the influence of early voting. I got a kick out of that. Coming up, we'll talk a little bit about the fiscal cliff. It's like planking, but for politicians. Just let it go. First, though, over the weekend, Javon Belcher. I'm not a football guy. Starting linebacker, Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, is this the one that shot his girlfriend and then killed himself?
His baby mama.
Yeah.
And then took his gun, drove to the Chiefs' facilities. Now, the story is went to go thank the GM, the head coach, and defensive coordinator before taking his own life. And I've said this for years. There is no winner in the gun debate. I've always just kind of, it comes like drugs, guns, two things that I don't partake in. I was relatively agnostic. For me, the discussion was less about guns and more about, okay, well, I want to carry mine into bars and movie theaters and sporting events. That's where the discussion always led me, because I thought those were the things we should be debating, especially in an era where, again, against all evidence to the contrary, talked about this when it came to the Leonard Boswell kowtowing, and how an otherwise really brave dude would just become just a puddle of goo, especially when the NRA endorsement was possibly at stake. Even when you look at the results, there's very little influence of an NRA endorsement when it comes to votes. It is an absolute paper tiger, glass cannon, whatever you want to call it. It makes a lot of noise. Doesn't really help you much. And yes, they have a very potent, look at our winning record for endorsements, but they run up the score, endorsing unopposed Republicans and the like. When Boswell voted to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt, I think had less to do about anything involving Eric Holder or his constituents in Iowa. I think that vote was based on one thing and one thing only, and that was the NRA said that they would be scoring the vote. It was part of their conspiracy. Fast and Furious was an effort to reform gun laws in America, and they're coming for our guns. And the fact that Obama hasn't done anything about guns in his first term means it's just a stealth Muslim Kenyan anti-colonialist plot to come get your guns in the second. And the truth of the matter is Barack Obama has done nothing when it comes to guns. And probably where the conversation should start, because what's really pushed the conversation on guns? Guns. And the people who wield them. And maybe it is time to take a closer reading of that Second Amendment. Maybe I need to rethink my agnosticism when it comes to at least handguns. And it's not just the Javon Belcher story. Could also look at Jordan Davis. He was the 17-year-old Florida kid who was in a loud SUV. And yes, I admit, those people are annoying. If you need to sit in a convenience store and blast your music, I don't particularly care for you. But I don't see that as an opportunity to end your life. A guy pulls up next to an SUV at a convenience store. It's loud. And yes, I understand that's annoying. But because this fine man happened to be carrying his hand cannon, blew away a 17-year-old that went to his lawyer and said, I felt threatened. I was standing my ground. You'll remember all the fun of the stand your ground law discussion in the Trayvon Martin case. Hoodie, Skittles, iced tea, that's threatening. And we're going to talk about Trayvon Martin. And my takeaway from that is, at least when it comes to the actual neighborhood watch, we've seen the signs. I think we're all familiar. It's like rule, A1 double plus beginning, start this with don't carry a weapon. Don't carry a gun. That's not your job as a neighborhood watch. Now, if you want to take to the streets as a vigilante, that's a different story. But Trayvon Martin would be alive today. This guy didn't choose to track him down carrying a gun. Jordan Davis would be alive today if this guy didn't have a weapon, on his hip, pulling into a convenience store.
Can you prove that?
How would he have killed him?
A knife, blunt object, baseball bat.
You think
club.
it would have come to that?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's asinine. I think that's stupid. You take situations and you escalate them. You completely change the nature of any encounter when you pull out a gun. Everything changes, and the situation is unique. A handgun exists for one purpose and one purpose only.
That may be, but you're pulling a lot of red herrings out here.
I don't think they're red herrings. These are actual real-world examples.
Is George Zimmerman guilty yet? Have they found him guilty?
No, but would George Zimmerman, do you believe, have gone and accosted Trayvon Martin face-to-face if he didn't have a gun?
I don't think he accosted Trayvon Martin face-to-face. I think Trayvon Martin followed him back to the car.
Why would Trayvon Martin have followed him back to the car?
That's just a matter of fact. I mean, even the police, that's in the report.
Why would he have followed him back to the car?
He did, though. I don't know why he followed him back to the car. That would tell me malicious intent. But it's going to tell you probably they wanted to hug it out.
Well, no, that actually is an asinine red herring, because what we're talking about here is a situation that was escalated simply because one guy had a gun. And his decision ended the life of someone else, which is why I connect it to the Javon Belcher.
Actually, though, when that was happening, Trayvon saw his gun and said, "Oh, you're going to die today," according to George Zimmerman. And I'm not saying he's innocent or guilty.
There's only one guy alive to tell their side of the story on that one.
Yeah, and I
because
understand
of George Zimmerman's gun.
I understand that, but if it was going to be Trayvon Martin that was alive, is his life more valuable than George Zimmerman's? If he would have taken George Zimmerman's gun and shot him, I mean,
why did George Zimmerman have a gun? That whole situation
exists and he's allowed to have it.
Because
he's an American.
Zimmerman decided to walk out the door armed.
And I'm not defending Zimmerman because quite frankly, I see some problematic things where it shows irresponsible gun ownership. But
there's a dead innocent kid.
I don't know that he's
that
innocent.
whole situation existed because Zimmerman walked out the house
Innocence
with a gun.
is not the word I would use for Trayvon Martin.
What word would you use?
I would say that he was accosting Zimmerman.
How was he accosting Zimmerman? Let's walk it
They were
back.
involved in a fist fight.
And why were they involved in an altercation in the first
Because
place?
Zimmerman saw somebody suspicious, called the police, and the kid got mad and came and punched him in the face.
No. He
Yeah.
didn't get mad that he called the police. He got mad that he was being trailed.
Being followed by the guy that's in charge of security for the neighborhood.
Self-appointed.
He was still part of a system.
He wasn't part of the neighborhood watch because what's their number one rule?
He
Don't carry a gun. And why do you think that number
He was
one?
breaking their rule, and that's one of the problems I have with George. But the altercation
should have never happened in the first place, and only did because this dude was carrying a weapon. He wouldn't have gone within 100 yards of this kid if he wasn't carrying.
He was on the way back to the car.
Artificial machismo.
He was on the way back to the car, and you're trying to tie this into this NFL thing.
Because
and
these
O.J. Simpson used a knife. He didn't use a gun, and it would have been the same
Yeah.
situation. That woman still would have been dead
Okay.
if he would have wanted to kill her.
But would the Javon Belcher, would the Jordan Davis, and would we even know who Trayvon Martin is without the inclusion of a gun? And that's the point that I'm trying.
I think
to get at.
If it would have ended tragically, either way, we would have known. He was getting his head slammed against the concrete. He feared for his life, whether he was right to
But
fear.
again, take that story back. He would have never.
He was
I'm
neighborhood
sorry.
watch. He was
No, he
supposed to-
wasn't. He was the neighborhood vigilante.
No,
You don't
he
get
was-
to call yourself neighborhood watch by breaking their number one rule.
Whether he was breaking the rule or
And
not.
that's how many hundreds
the
of
Jimmy John
911
guy-
calls?
and
How many
the-
hundreds of
stop for a
911
second.
calls?
You're just trying to chat over
Did George
me.
Zimmerman make
That's fine. The guy's a nut job. Okay,
with a gun who made a situation happen?
I think he made the situation worse.
That was my whole point.
But it's not that he made it happen. He was being attacked. Whether or not he made the situation worse is kind of a moot issue because that's not what we're talking about. Second of all, the Jimmy John's kid. Remember that a couple years ago where the guy got robbed at gunpoint? The Jimmy John's guy, or not Jimmy John's, he was a
Pizza Hut
Pizza
guy
Hut.
carrying a gun?
And so by your logic, he wasn't a Pizza Hut delivery driver either, right?
By Pizza Hut's logic, he was fired for it.
Yeah, he was fired for it, but he was still their employee at the time. Legally, whether you want to admit it or not, George Zimmerman was the person responsible for Neighborhood Watch that night.
It's self-appointed. He
wasn't
made himself the guardian of all things. He called
No,
911 because there was a 9-year-old black kid in the neighborhood before.
You
I think there's a kind of a troubling pattern.
I agree with you,
there.
but that should have been addressed in the Neighborhood Watch system.
I think it is. That's why I'm saying don't carry a gun.
Well, I agree that he broke the rules. I'm not disagreeing there. I'm saying he was still part of. You're trying to say, oh, he wasn't. No, he was. He was doing his job up until the point where the gun came out.
No, he wasn't doing his job when he left the house carrying
Fair
a
enough.
gun.
Fair enough. But he was still on
He
the
decided to go rogue.
job. If you have a job at principal and you're not supposed to bring your cell phone
Yeah,
to
but
work,
hold on.
Are you an employee? of
You're not
principal?
hired by the neighborhood watch. You're comparing apples and oranges here.
Fine.
You get fired for violating company policy.
You're a volunteer at a concert. You're not supposed to have
On
your
what?
cell phone with you, and you bring it anyway and take a picture of Aerosmith playing. You weren't an employee, but would they be right to remove you? And were you still a volunteer with that cell phone in your pocket?
Well, you'd be fired. You'd be removed from the premises.
But up until the point of your firing, were you still a volunteer for them? Would you still have responsibilities to do?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So when he left the house with a gun, he was choosing to not
He was choosing to be. He was
a
choosing-
neighborhood watch, which, by the way, doesn't come with any like arrest powers or anything.
No, you
It's-
call the cops and you follow the person around so you tell them where they're at. That's what you do.
All right, well, no, he was actually told by the 911 operator not to follow.
Okay, well, the 911 operators
kid.
can't bind you in anything. They're not cops. They're not part of law enforcement. They're people that answer the phone and tell you and tell you.
I'm not
cops on the
familiar.
way.
I gotta be honest. I don't know the legal enforcement ability
There's
of
none.
911 operators, but they are officials. They are county employees.
They're employees, and
when they say stop following
is the
him,
janitor at the courthouse, is he in charge of you? I mean, come on, that's what they are. They're just people answering the phone.
No, I'm not going to call 911 operators janitors. Not going there.
Yeah, you're trying to tie lines I didn't tie. I'm saying that
was the connection you made.
No,
that was the reference you brought up.
Their position provides no authority over anybody. It is simply to answer phone calls and direct police officers to the scene.
Which they were doing.
Absolutely, they were doing their job.
And they told the guy, don't follow. And why would they do that?
But that's not a binding thing. That's good advice. And he to the best of our knowledge,
every decision that we know George Zimmerman made.
But to the best of our
was
knowledge,
to escalate
George
the situation.
Zimmerman turned around and went back to his car at that point. To the best.
He kept following. We have the 911 tapes. Even the ones that MSNBC didn't edit.
He was on his way back to the car. So at some point he said, "Oh, you know what? They are giving me good advice," and he quit following me. Did he not?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay,
but I know he ignored their request.
I know the media
to
says
stop
he
following
ignored their request.
The kid. I believe that was prosecutors as well.
But I know that his defense attorneys and eyewitnesses collaborate that he was getting back in his vehicle when he was struck in the face by what's his name? Martin. I can't. Trayvon Martin.
I think if he was seriously injured, isn't standard operating procedure to take someone to get medical care before bringing them to the police station? He was brought to the police station first, so obviously they didn't see any.
Well, whenever you're.
That's just what I get from watching Cops.
That I'm not an expert on. I know as a guy that has a carry permit, I know one of the things they told me is the second you pull that off and discharge that firearm, you're guilty. And you'll be treated. You'll be treated as
you're going to be taken in.
Yeah,
because they want to.
So I don't know what the protocol is in that. And the officer could have looked at him and said you're fine, and then found out it was a little more serious than he thought. I don't know how bad his head wounds are, because quite frankly, head wounds can bleed really bad, or they cannot bleed at all, and that has nothing to do with the internal.
You think
damage.
If someone was bleeding really bad, though, they would take him to at least get a couple stitches or a Band-Aid before bringing him in.
You would think
to the police station, and they didn't.
But he could have stopped bleeding at the time, or they could have been worried about internal damage from his head slamming on the concrete when he was supposedly. And I don't know. I mean, here's the thing: this is a kind of a bad case. Because I agree with you. The guy kind of seems like he was trying to be a superhero. He had an inflated ego because he had a piece in his pocket.
Well, and that's right there. That is the beginning, middle, and end, the alpha and the omega of my argument.
But then my argument is, because George Zimmerman has a gun, I want a gun. Because he's a super inflated crazy, and
how do we keep George Zimmerman from getting a gun?
Well,
let's talk about that.
He hasn't done anything to lose his right to a gun.
Well, let's talk about.
Okay, let's talk
where
about
Javon Belcher, or the guy who killed Jordan Davis. Should they be possessing and carrying handguns?
Have they broken the law?
Well, no. I'm not saying they're guilty by owning guns. I'm saying. Should they be owning guns in the first place? Let's take a look at the Second Amendment. Let's look at what a well-regulated militia actually is.
You're tying two things that aren't connected even in the English language together, but that's okay.
No, that's the Second Amendment. That's in the text.
I understand.
Being part of a well-regulated...
It's the right of the people to bear arms and to have formed a well-regulated militia.
Well, it says... the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But we know that's not the case. If you're a felon, if you're a minor,
I would agree that we infringe those rights.
Well, and by the way, can I own an MX missile?
I would agree.
We agree that you can put limits on weapon ownership.
No, I see, and that's where I don't know philosophically.
Should a 6-year-old be able to go buy a 9mm?
No, I think age is okay.
All right.
But when we talk about these other weapons out there,
can I buy a Patriot missile system and keep it in my backyard for home defense?
Do you got $1 million?
If I had $1 million, could I buy a dirty bomb? Because I want to make sure that if anyone tries to steal my Franklin Mint or collectible plate collection, that they die in nuclear fire.
Well, how valuable is that plate collection?
Some of those things.
I agree with your premise that there is limits somewhere.
So now the only argument is where do we place those limits? And
Absolutely.
it's a very different discussion
Absolutely, but
than the gun lobby is willing to have in this country.
And that's fine. But
that's my point. That's what I'm saying.
Is how do we stop these guys? We don't know who's going to flip, who's going to crack. Humans are utterly unpredictable. You can say
that's actually the root of where I'm getting with this,
so
which
you
is
just want to keep all humans from having these things, which is fine, Bradshaw.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point where I mean, how many Dark Knight shootings? They caught a kid who wanted to do the same thing for a Twilight movie. 11,000 Americans.
Well, let's just be honest. There, the Twilight movie people. Who's going to cry?
No,
I'm just kidding.
In all
seriousness,
something changed in society somewhere around Columbine where that I'm going to punch my ticket changed. So I'm going to take a bunch of people with me.
Yeah, and I don't understand that. But here's the reality of the situation here. Is the only way I'm going to let you disarm me is if everybody else is proven disarmed. And we can't do that in American society.
Why not? Because we can put a man on the moon.
There's 4 times as many guns that we know about in this country as there are people.
Well, and maybe it's an issue of, okay, we stop the sale of handguns and we do everything we can to get them out of the system, whether that's the gun.
I mean, really,
trade-in programs. I mean, smarter people than I can handle.
That's ridiculous.
The how.
I'm not gonna trade in my gun when somebody else can have one, and now they think I don't. Yeah, that's retarded.
What if you? I mean, okay, we'll just eventually we'll run out of ammunition if we stop selling.
Can you undo the knowledge of how to make gunpowder? Can you take?
Well, no, I'm not saying we should do.
Okay, then I can make ammunition for the foreseeable future. Okay,
and if that were made a crime, you'd do it anyway.
If I was a criminal, absolutely. In which
would
case,
you? I'm saying, would you do it?
Well, I believe the right to own guns is an American right. So, yeah, I would because it wouldn't be a crime. They would have to literally.
If it was made against the law. Because my guess is George Zimmerman wouldn't make his ammunition. I doubt Javon Belcher had. The same.
I would seriously doubt that ever comes to play. But if it does, then that's a good time to start looking. That's one of those rights that I'm willing to fight for.
Why?
Why? Because I want to be able to protect me and my family. I don't really want
to but you're more
kill.
likely, again, to shoot a family member by accident than a bad guy.
I'm not likely to shoot a family member at all. Proper gun training is everything here.
Okay,
this guy didn't exercise proper gun training.
Statistics are what they are, and you are more likely to have a homicide or a suicide in your home with that gun there.
I don't know where are you getting that from. Show me that. But
talk to the Brady folks. Talk to
But the Brady folks are skewing.
Talk to the Department of Justice. Talk to state governments. Those
would be fine. Brady folks are one-sided. They're skewing their numbers. But it doesn't really matter. That's like saying that you're more likely to buy a cheeseburger if you have $1 in your wallet. I mean, of course you are.
But 60% of homicides in this country are gun.
60% of fat people have money to afford McDonald's.
Okay, McDonald's isn't... What is the purpose of a McDonald's cheeseburger?
I don't know, because you want a McDonald's cheeseburger.
There's food.
There's no nutritional value to it.
What is the purpose of a handgun?
It's to provide food.
No, a handgun is to kill, generally, people.
No, I deer hunt with mine.
You deer hunt with a 9mm?
Who does that with a 9mm?
I don't know guns.
I would use a 357 or 44.
All right.
But they're tools. I agree that it's a bad situation. I just don't see a logical fit.
It's a tool. Yes, you can kill people with a tack hammer. But what is the purpose of a tack hammer?
The purpose
to drive nails.
When you pick it up to kill somebody, its purpose is to be a murder
weapon. Well, yes,
weapon.
Any tool can be a weapon. I'm an Annie DeFranco fan. I understand this.
I mean, just because when I pick up my handgun, you know what its purpose is? Its purpose is to shoot a target, which consequently doesn't normally look like a human. So, because I know some people get really upset about silhouettes, and I don't normally shoot at silhouettes. So nine times, well, so far in my life, I've probably shot the gun that's sitting in my cabinet right now, locked up in a gun safe that would take a tornado, supposedly.
Have you ever needed your gun for self-defense?
No, and that means you're doing something right.
I'm 36 years old. I've we've talked about that. I've never in my life.
I've had a gun.
Once,
I've had a gun held to my head. I mean, it would have been nice to know that I could have found a point of defense, but the fact that I made it means that I didn't need it. But you can't know that. Yeah, I had no way of knowing when that kid pulled the gun on me whether I was going to breathe another.
I've never gone through concealed weapons training, but don't they tell you at that point when you're drawn on, and I think having a gun to your head counts?
Oh, I think
that not to pull your gun, that's a bad idea, that is going to...
Basically, they tell you if you're going to get the chance to legally exercise your right to a firearm, you're probably already dead. And which means you're not necessarily literally dead, but you've been shot fatally or about to be shot. I mean, you're stabbed. You're beyond probably saving, and it's really to protect those that are with you at that point. That is what my instructor told me, and I believe that to be true. It's not going to be I shot him before he could get me thing, because there's always that. Was it really going to get to that point? Did he have the guts to pull the trigger? The problem is the kid that had the gun in his hand against my head, I have no way of knowing that. And would I have been justified to blow him away?
You think he knew how to make his own ammunition?
I don't know.
If he had not had a gun,
easy. I don't know if you've ever. I can bring in.
I'll
bring my Lee
but hold on.
kit and do it for you.
If that guy hadn't possessed a handgun, you wouldn't have been in that situation.
He would have had a baseball bat, and I would have bet that situation would have got worse. Because he knew that whatever consequence was forever, I think, was strained his hand. And I got my jaw broken instantly in that incident. But if they'd had baseball bats, I bet I would have died. I have no doubt in my mind. None.
Interesting.
Because they're looking at eternal consequences. You beat somebody up with a baseball bat, they might live, you might not get in trouble. They broke my jaw, they didn't get in trouble.
Well, that's the thing.
Had they shot me in the head, the chances of them getting in trouble were a lot more, and I think that's what restrained him. But I don't know that was necessarily true.
Because for the longest time, I've been of the mind that the misuse of guns. Like, if we're going to take the gun people, at their word, the Second Amendment is a divine right, then the penalty for the misuse of firearms should be so high.
Absolutely.
That it's, over the top, draconian punishment.
Absolutely.
But again, the problem comes with how many of these shooters go in with the intent of ending their own life to begin with.
Well, and we can't
like
know that.
Javon Belcher, all right.
Is that the running back guy?
That's the linebacker for the Chiefs, who shot the mother of his child. Which,
let's be honest, the guy that size, professional athlete, there's probably not a woman alive that could have fended him off, barely a man.
But now, being sports, I say this as a baseball fan. I grew up around sports, even though I never played football. But the NFL has a bit of a problem when it comes to domestic violence. Like Lawrence Phillips can be a number one.
Are jacked up on testosterone and
draft
they tend
pick.
to be jerks. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it is just young people with lots of money.
I think that's probably true as well.
The culture that they grow up in, which is all about, sure, Tommy skipped, fourth grade or fourth period math, but it's a big game coming up this week. It was Paul Hornung, I believe, from Notre Dame.
Sure.
Who ended up having a bunch of, real life problems. Said, I live my life on scholarship.
Sure.
Starting, the minute he shows athletic talent, and you learn that I can get away with things, and look at, pretty much the entirety of, college sports. And then if you are lucky enough to move on to pro, again, there's always someone willing to overlook your behavior as long as you perform on the field.
Which I think is regrettable. I think we idolize in this country sports heroes to the point to absurdity. I mean, these guys, and be it as they may, they have short careers, and I understand why we need to compensate them pretty well, or why they would want to be compensated, because football tears your body up, and there's
this isn't a sports conversation. I have no problem with the
but
sports.
These guys, we idolize them, And in doing that, we idolize them for their talent and not their moral fiber.
That's kind of always been the case.
And I think that when we raise these people up like this, that we should be looking more at their morals, that we should abandon people. I like that Michael Vick doesn't have the career he could have had because he was a dog fighter. I think that's great. I would have liked to have seen him completely banned. We need to look at these people. Tiger Woods cheating on his wife, I would love to see him be done in golf. Magic Johnson, I don't think he should have the career he has after cheating on his wife and getting AIDS. These are moral fiber issues that we've raised.
But when you look at 50% of the population, married population is going to cheat. We have over 50%.
So we should idolize people that do it so that it makes it right.
I think we go the Charles Barkley route and we realize that human beings play sports.
I understand that, and there's
they're just like us, but with a better jump shot or a better short game.
Well, but the problem is that we don't teach anybody to be like that. We teach our youth, we teach our young men to idolize and wish they were these people. How many people play fantasy football because it makes them feel like they're really part of the game, or do flag?
It's a sense of accomplishment.
Or like the flag football guys. This is a perfect example. Have you ever played flag football as an adult?
No.
It is the roughest, worst thing you can ever do to your body. What you get is a bunch of guys that weren't good enough in high school. No, it makes meth look easy. You get a bunch of guys that weren't good enough in high school, or maybe were the high school star, who knows, and they didn't make it anywhere in life, and they still think they're good at football, so they play flag football. And they are the guys, like, you're trying to have
like intramural sports in college.
You're trying to have a good time, and they're trying to kill you.
Yeah, that's just...
We idolize people, and we should do it. If we're going to lift
that's
people,
just glory daysism.
Yeah, but if we're gonna lift people up based on their talent, we should also look at the moral fiber. We shouldn't, just because half the world's going to cheat on their wife, think that's okay. That doesn't make that.
Not a matter of think it's okay, but to think that it's like some sort of like way outside the norm.
Why is it no problem? It costs General Petraeus his job, but Michael Jordan gets away with it, or Tiger Woods, I don't know.
Well, I think there were a lot of people that argue that why would General Petraeus lose his gig?
Well, they were all too happy to throw him under the bus, though. I didn't see anybody stand up for him. Who's argued for him?
Well, I think there were...
Like, who?
I couldn't name you any names off the top of my head, but
that's my point.
There was pushback.
Not
great by any means, no.
We don't value people's morals anymore, and I think that's...
I mean, do you think that General Petraeus should have lost his gig?
No, and the reason I don't is because I don't see anybody else losing their gig over being
well, that shouldn't... Again, if everyone else jumps off a bridge into some other woman's bed, would you?
Then yes. If you're asking ultimately, if it would have been
have you been
black and
fireable?
white, I think, though, part of the reason is his job has to do with being trusted.
Well,
and you can't trust a guy that's lying to even the person that's supposed to be closest to him.
Well, that I don't think they care so much about as keeping it secret.
Yeah, that's
and
my problem.
That leads you open to blackmail and a whole other...
It opens you up to a lot of things.
Mess, but this is a good illustration of what I want to talk about, and that is the response that was relatively muted until Sunday Night Football last night, when Bob Costas, and I'll play you the clip, spent about 90 seconds talking about this. The blowback has been amazing. I think that is ultimately telling. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll play you the Costas clip. And more importantly, because it's funny how many people react to Bob Costas and not the Jason Whitlock piece that he was actually speaking from. I'll have both for you when we come back. And again, the response, the reaction, I think is telling. And I'll explain why when we come back here on The Bradshaw Show on Webcast One Live. Thanks for watching. Back right after this.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
It's time to start.
Rock concert movement number 1. The basic head bob. Ready, go.
All right, 207 Brad Show with you here on a absolutely gorgeous spring day. You would never know that it was December outside. I'm going to the dog park after this.
There was dew on the ground, not frost.
Well, yeah, it's been foggy.
Yeah, that was crazy yesterday. You couldn't hardly see maybe 100 feet in
Yeah,
front
the
of you.
last 2 nights were absolutely insane with fog. The cool down is coming, but at least for now. I know. I don't want to live with it either. I want to wear shorts, to a New Year's Eve party. I think that would be.
I'm great with global warming if it delivers this winter or it's like last winter.
Yeah, but that water supply gets a little.
Hey, we'll find more. We're Americans.
We have actually a rather large aquifer, which is why it's best not to put some sort of oil pipeline over it. But that's another topic for another time. Right now I want to discuss, and this is kind of what set off the Javon Belcher situation. Last night, if you're like me and most Americans, you weren't watching Sunday Night Football, but I guess this was during the halftime show. And I think Bob Costas is a national treasure. Certainly, while being a sports guy to his core, has certainly, I think, transcended that in American pop culture. And this is what he had to say last night during halftime of Sunday Night Football.
Leach, owner.
He said something about Brian Leach?
Wow, who knew?
That's weird. I don't know why it just went to that. All right.
Here's Costas.
Well, you knew it was coming. In the aftermath of the nearly unfathomable events in Kansas City, that most mindless of sports cliches was heard yet again. Something like this really puts it all in perspective. Well, if so, that sort of perspective has a very short shelf life, since we will inevitably hear about the perspective we have supposedly again regained the next time ugly reality intrudes upon our games. Please, those who need tragedies to continually recalibrate their sense of proportion about sports would seem to have little hope of ever truly achieving perspective. You want some actual perspective on this? Well, a bit of it comes from the Kansas City-based writer Jason Whitlock, with whom I do not always agree, but who today said it so well that we may as well just quote or paraphrase from the end of his article. Our current gun culture, Whitlock wrote, ensures that more and more domestic disputes will end in the ultimate tragedy, and that more convenience store confrontations over loud music coming from a car will leave more teenage boys bloodied and dead. Handguns do not enhance our safety. They exacerbate our flaws, tempt us to escalate arguments, and bait us into embracing confrontation rather than avoiding it. In the coming days, Javon Belcher's actions and their possible connection to football will be analyzed. Who knows? But here, wrote Jason Whitlock, is what I believe. If Javon Belcher didn't possess a gun, he and Cassandra Perkins would both be alive today. The second half is next from Dallas.
Now, whether you agree or disagree with what he said in the article, it was funny, again, to see the framing, because almost immediately on the Drudge Report, a.k.a. the assignment editor for most of the right, it was Bob Costas gun rant. And that's what showed up on the Daily Caller, and that's what showed up on the Breitbart site. It was Costas anti-gun rant. I guess they have a different definition.
That wasn't anti-gun?
Of rant than I do.
It was kind of weird.
I think it's something telling about American culture that Whitlock can write his piece. I think it showed up on Fox Sports and a couple other sites and doesn't make a ripple. But when you say it during a football game, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, but it's really inappropriate to say we're there to watch football. And
it was halftime. There wasn't anything to watch.
It doesn't matter to analyze the game that was just played. I don't watch a sporting event to get gun rights issues shoved down my throat either way. I would be just as displeased with the NRA releasing a statement how the gun would have done nothing.
Now, again, whether it's bringing Rush in or Dennis Miller, again, I think that
I don't
that
want
box
any
has
of those
been open.
clowns. Yeah, that's a stupid box to open.
Well, whether it's a smart box to open, I would agree with you. It's probably not.
I mean,
but it is open.
Let's listen to news for news, and let's listen to sports to hear about sports.
Well, this was a sports story. This was
but
this conversation started with, should you even play this game? And maybe the best example of why you shouldn't have was the Kansas City Chiefs in their locker room, decided to put Belcher's jersey on display. And this is a guy who just killed the mother of his child. Again, that's not to cast stones at the Chiefs players, but it is, they're maybe not fully, they haven't fully processed what went on. You have a head coach and a GM and other assorted Chiefs employees who just watched this guy off himself.
These aren't black and white issues either, though.
In front of them.
And I don't mean that racially. I just mean
I think
there's a lot of gray area there where they have a personal relationship with the guy, and you can still mourn for the guy. I know that guy that blew the face out of his wife, like last year, or the year before, that Randy Moore guy that kidnapped the gal.
At the Dolls.
Yeah, I knew him, and to be honest,
were you mourning him 24 hours after? No, you're probably in shock. That's a typical human reaction.
I'm still in shock because I was hanging out with him a couple days before, and I knew that things weren't going well for him, but I didn't see that coming. But the point is, I mean, those guys, he's their friend, and there's some feelings. You're like, man, is there any more to this?
You're not my friend after you kill someone.
And that's by and large what happened to Randy is
cold-blooded murder.
Everybody I knew that knew Randy, including myself, were like, yeah, you're crazy. And I don't know what else to say there. There's nothing good there. But this is one of those things where Randy was still alive and that is a little different. But this guy's dead. They can mourn a sad situation for what it is. I don't know that putting his jersey, doing anything honorable with his jersey makes a lot of sense. But
it was 2 hours after this had happened that the NFL made the call. Like, this game is going on.
Which is, I think, silly to me. I mean, I think they could have probably.
Well, that's how much money.
Yeah,
I
understand.
Whether it's TV deals,
I understand.
tickets,
I understand.
and
There's some
like.
practicality issues there. It just, It's weird. The whole
But
thing's weird.
but this is what Whitlock had to say. So I would argue your rationalizations, well, playing the game and the like, speak to how numb we are in the society to gun violence and murder. We've come to accept our insanity. We prefer to avoid seriously reflecting upon the absurdity of the prevailing notion that a Second Amendment somehow enhances our liberty rather than threatens it. How many young people have to die senselessly? How many lives have to be ruined before we realize the right to bear arms doesn't protect us from a government equipped with stealth bombers, predator drones, tanks, and nuclear weapons? Current gun culture simply ensures that more and more domestic disputes will end in the ultimate tragedy, that more convenience store confrontations over loud music coming from a car will leave more teenage boys bloodied and dead. In the coming days, Belcher's actions will be analyzed through the lens of concussions and head injuries. Who knows, maybe brain damage triggered his violent overreaction to a fight with his girlfriend. What I believe is, if he didn't possess/own a gun, he and Cassandra Perkins would both be alive today. That is the message I wish Chiefs players, professional athletes, and all of us would focus on Sunday and moving forward. Handguns do not enhance our safety. They exacerbate our flaws, tempt us to escalate arguments, and bait us into embracing confrontation rather than avoiding it. But we won't. We'll watch Sunday's game and comfort ourselves with the false belief we're incapable of the wickedness that exploded inside Javon Belcher Saturday morning.
Objection, speculation. That's all just speculation.
That's what he said. He believes.
But that's fine. It's speculation.
That's pretty much what the statement "I believe."
I know, but then it's
means.
being forwarded. I understand that,
And
but it's
you
being,
certainly understand what it's like to believe something that is unverifiable.
I don't know what you're talking about. I know you know how to believe something's unverifiable.
But
yeah,
you understand what it's like to believe
the
and
problem
act
is,
on something.
Nicole Simpson, right? Would she be alive today if OJ hadn't owned a knife, or would he have strangled her?
No, domestic disputes have happened since time.
Okay, so
immortal.
chances are maybe today she'd be alive and tomorrow she'd be beaten to a pulp. He actually probably saved her a great deal of pain. I mean,
I think she would disagree, but we can't ask her. She's dead.
We can't ask her, but I'm just saying there's worse. No, I don't.
But it turns a fight into a murder. It escalates the situation.
I think it turns a murder into a gun murder. I think she was going to be killed anyway, and that's what I believe. And you can't verify
the gun,
that either.
because yes, you can kill someone with anything.
Sure.
I'm sure there's an alternate ending to the gods must be crazy that show a bloodied Coke bottle and everyone gone crazy. What the gun does is makes it easier and instantaneous. All I got to do is
a punch from that guy's paw would make that instantaneous. That guy, I have a friend that killed a kid, punched him through the window and instantly died. The gun isn't any more instant than any other method of killing. The human body is fragile.
It's not that fragile.
The gun makes sure it's fragile. The gun exasperates its fragility. But this is one of those things. She would have been.
Are we? And then this is the debate we probably need to have. And the folks on the right, no matter what happens, their first response is usually, now is not the time to talk about guns. And it doesn't matter how many theaters get shot up or how many kids are blown away in a convenience store.
Yeah, but we talked
how
about
many.
We talked about this.
Gun deaths.
We need
happen.
to be able to have an honest philosophical conversation about it.
With tens of thousands of gun violent episodes of this country, there is never a time where it's not going on.
Well,
it doesn't exist.
There are certainly times where it's not in the media. Like, say, this whole election cycle, we didn't have any real gun violence in the media since the Dark Knight thing.
No, we had gun conspiracy theories from the right.
I don't care about the guns conspiracy theories.
I do, because the NRA, in spite of all evidence,
the NRA
wields
is an organization
tremendous political power in this country.
It, like the Republican Party, is losing people right and left.
They are, but that hasn't depleted their influence. They can even get guys like Leonard Boswell to do their bidding, or Chet Culver.
See, what's weird is you just spent the whole first 15 minutes of the show saying how ineffective their influence is, and now you're calling them influentials.
What do you mean?
You just said, and I quote you, you said that Boswell...
The evidence does not back up wanting to kowtow. They don't affect elections.
So then they have no power.
But they do, because they have the ability to influence policymakers. My argument is that they shouldn't. because the evidence does not bear it out. However, reality tells
think
me
no lobbyist should. I don't think.
Well, that, again, you're talking a different issue. I would love to remove the influence,
But
until we remove money from politics, it's
I
simply not
understand,
going to
and
happen.
it's just like gun violence. Until we move guns from the hands of criminals, I'm not going to give you mine.
The NRA, again, in spite of their actual electoral evidence,
Yes.
all right, wields influence among policymakers. So what they say does matter.
Except that we have a president and a Senate. Is that right? Senate? Am I using the right? Democratically ran. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Who on the? I mean, besides Boswell,
Chet Culver,
who's not there anymore.
There are plenty of, whether it's blue dogs or just coastal state Democrats who, yes, kowtow to the NRA because they want that NRA endorsement under the mistaken
What major
belief.
pro-gun legislation besides here in Iowa has been passed?
We've been passing.
Federally.
Well, you don't pass a lot federally, but we saw like the Heller decision.
Okay,
and there was no
And are
blowback.
you aware of what actually got changed in Iowa? Do you know?
There.
Do you know what happened? Like what actually got changed?
Not as much as the NRA would have liked.
Yeah,
and
all
part of that was
that's got changed is one word, and that was it.
Yeah, we removed the ability for local law enforcement to have a say.
To discriminate.
To have a say.
The problem isn't that I didn't want them to have a say. The problem is they were discriminating.
But
my brother.
What would have happened if a Republican lawmaker wasn't caught on an open mic calling it the "Give a Schizophrenic a Gun" bill?
Who knows?
Well, we can make an educated guess. There was also, without Trayvon Martin, I would be willing to wager we would have a stand your ground law here in Iowa. The same thing that killed
the problem is
Jordan Davis.
We had sheriffs
the day
that
after
were discriminating
Thanksgiving
against people that wanted to carry. One guy could get it, one wouldn't. My brother, who lived out in Indianola, whatever.
I'd be
county
fine with
that
making
is,
it a straight, standard. But when you remove the ability for law enforcement, let's say them darn dirty Duke boys who are up to no good, but you've never been able to catch them on anything
So
because
catch 'em on
Roscoe P.
something.
Coltrane is incompetent.
Then get competent deputies and catch them on something. I mean, that's the solution. The problem is
You remove the ability for law
then
enforcement.
you want to remove
and
the
we don't
ability
have
for innocent until proven guilty, which is another, because that's what they are. If they haven't been caught on anything, they're innocent, right?
anything that would disqualify you from.
So why should
let's
you
say you
get
just
a right,
like.
So why should you get your ability? That'd be
Because
like
I've
saying,
seen an episode of Cops, and I've seen the "Don't take my baby away."
the problem.
person.
The problem is.
So, yeah.
Let's take this out of guns.
I don't want to remove law enforcement's ability to
take
have a say.
Let's take this out of guns and say you own a Corvette, and they go, well, I know he probably drives fast. We suspect him of it. Let's take his driver's license away. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, right? Because they haven't caught you speeding. Just the fact that you have something.
What is the purpose of getting a driver's license?
The purpose of getting your driver's license is to drive to and from places.
All right. What is the purpose of getting a concealed weapons permit?
So that you don't get attacked by bobcats, mountain lions. We just had that happen. Mountain lions.
And this is what Whitlock is getting at, and this is the debate I don't think gun people want to have is, are you truly safer because of our gun culture?
You know what I don't feel truly safer is around our violent culture in general. I don't feel safe around these people regardless.
Why are we so more violent than the British or the Japanese?
The British are pretty violent people.
Don't have anywhere near the violent crime rate.
And we don't typically...
We do. Not even close.
We don't have the tyranny that's been leading Asia in general.
I wouldn't. Now, Japanese are kind of racist and xenophobic, but I don't think they're tyrannical.
They
by
train
any
people
means.
to be kamikaze plane.
That was 70 years ago.
How many
Try
years
again.
ago? That doesn't matter.
That was World War II.
Okay. What?
They also believed that their domestic leader was a literal god.
Okay, and so how far removed that? You said 70 years?
Yeah.
World War II, 19...
World War II is kind of over.
Yeah, I understand that.
We stopped locking up Japanese people.
Which
They
was
stopped
probably
believing
wrong.
their emperor, probably. They stopped believing their emperor was a god. Let's talk about modern day today.
I understand, but that influence is still present. They're still dying out. World War II people still live in America. There's a lot of World War II soldiers still
Okay,
alive.
but let's talk about today, because if you want to go back, I understand where the Second Amendment makes absolute perfect sense as written in 1700s America.
To be
we had
honest,
just
I've never
overthrown the largest army, the most powerful army,
Sure.
arguably since the Roman legions terrorized Europe, and we did it with our muskets and our axes and Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Now let's fast forward. 230 years.
And
if
suddenly,
you're going to argue,
if you become tyrannical, we shouldn't be able to exercise and do the same thing.
You're not going to. They have tanks.
Based off of what fact?
They have tanks. You have a handgun.
Okay.
Show me the effectiveness of a handgun versus an armed predator drone.
But then you make a better argument for not handicapping what kind of. You make a better argument for your owning that dirty missile you wanted earlier. I mean,
dirty bomb.
Yeah, dirty bomb. Whatever.
But that's an absurd. You want people to own dirty bombs.
I don't want the government to be able to.
Well, the government owns large-scale, massive weaponry and ordnance.
I understand.
Now, that simply is. So you can either argue.
It simply is that the people out in Hamas and everywhere else seem to do just fine with AKs and a couple handguns against our army.
Not so much.
I would disagree.
You don't think if we wanted to
How many soldiers have you met missing limbs? How many soldiers have died?
Oh, you can absolutely form an insurgency, and this is why so many right-wingers have literally gotten off to Red Dawn over the decades.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that movie came back up. But.
I think it absolutely fits in with the doom rumors and wackos. But if you believe that your handgun is going to, defend you against an AC-130, because ask the folks in Fallujah how effective their pushback was. We flattened the town.
The problem
we flattened villages.
The problem is I can't defend against that, but I could defend against 2 or 3 soldiers coming in with AKs or ARs.
By the way, if you shot enough guys walking through with their guns, and they call in air support, what happens to you?
It is what
you
it
get
is.
blowed up real good.
So
you're making the point for me is that
I'm
argument
not.
For the Second Amendment is moot at this point.
No, it's not moot. I'm not going to hand over my final means, be it as inferior as it is.
But if you admit it's ineffective, and if that's the basis, if that's the argument,
it's not the basis
that gun people want to make for the Second Amendment, so I can stand up to my government, and we've shown it to be ineffective, and then we can introduce the rest of, the literally tens of thousands of people who are shot, wounded or killed every year in this country. And we say, okay, here's the cost.
What's available.
What is the benefit?
I think you're gravely misunderstanding what's available to the average consumer, gun-wise. Second of all, I don't think we can demonstrate that.
Well, what do you think is available? Stinger missiles? Are we going to get man pads?
Barrett 50 cals. In Arizona, you can have fully automatic weapons mounted to Jeeps.
What's that going to do to Sheriff Joe? All right, maybe the worst sheriff in America, the guy who loves to be on TV.
Yeah,
has a functioning tank.
Yeah.
Is your 50 cal going to stop his tank?
He owns it. Exactly.
No, it's part. No. It's part of the Maricopa County.
Oh, okay. Well,
Sheriff Torrance. He has a tank. Are you going to stop a tank with your 50 cal?
An IUD would.
IED.
IED, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Be very careful.
I'm not a military guy.
Okay. I don't think an IUD would do much to.
It would stop pregnancy.
Yeah,
my bad.
Unless they're using some sort of ammo I'm not familiar with. I don't think an IUD.
The IED would certainly.
But
I mean, we have access to dynamite. We can make the weapons in very short order that we would need.
All right, and then if that happens, you know what they do? They just carpet bomb.
They're not going to carpet bomb. The American government, it would not
ask the folks in Dresden if we would firebomb people.
We would not firebomb our people in large scales.
Well, now what you're arguing, though, is this tyrannical government is putting the people down.
I'm talking about
that's what you need to rise. That's what you're claiming you need to rise up against. So what's to keep them from...
It's not... But see, the problem is you're looking on a very small scale. And you're saying, it'd be a little like a Waco group or something like that.
No, I'm saying on a grand scale. Let's say we got to pacify Detroit.
They're not going to have the numbers we have. Sheer numbers wins out every time, Bradshaw. They're not going to fire. They're going to want to control. If you're a tyrannical leader, you don't want to live in a country where nobody else exists. Because then you don't lead anybody.
Based on what we're seeing in Syria or past history in
Based off what we're seeing
Iraq
in
or
South,
North Korea, actually, yeah, they are willing to do that.
Well, in which case,
So those are the real world examples of that happening.
The problem is, in which case, you would like to make the argument that we should even take away their piddly slingshots, and I would say if they want slingshots and that makes them feel safe, give them freaking slingshots. You know, and that's what you're comparing a gun to. You're saying, oh, it's so ineffective.
No, I'm saying a handgun is exactly that. And we know what its purpose is. We know what it was designed to do. We know what it gets used.
It was designed to be a small arm that could protect a person traveling without having to carry a rifle or bring to bear a rifle.
So why not just get rid of handguns and allow people all the hunting and long guns that they want?
Why would I get rid of my handgun?
That seems to work in the rest of the first world.
First of all, you know what the difference between a rifle and a handgun is? A hacksaw. I mean, literally. So you can't undo these things. You're trying to.
Even a sawed-off won't fit in your pocket.
Oh, buddy, you can get a sawed-off this big. It'll fit in your pocket. You have no idea how little barrel you actually need for a sawed-off shotgun.
But follow my logic here. If you're
I've got
claiming
a Derringer
the
this
root,
big that'll shoot a 410 shotgun shell. You don't need very much.
But you're telling me the root of the Second Amendment is to fight back against a tyrannical government.
No, I'm saying that's one part of it.
What are the other parts?
The other part is the right to keep and bear arms, period.
As part of a well-regulated militia. Define well-regulated militia.
It's not as part of a well-regulated. You also have the right to that.
But we already put limitations on those rights.
I understand.
So why not go further?
I would say, why would we go that far?
Because look at the hundreds of thousands of people.
I think we've gone far enough.
And that's the argument we need to have. But according to the folks on the right, it's not the time.
I mean,
and it's never the time.
Well, the problem is you guys are trying to use opportune times to. To influence people emotionally, and that's my problem with it.
Whether it's Columbine, whether it's the gun people at Waco, whether it's the Dark Knight shooting, whether it's an NFL, whether it's the Trayvon Martin, whether it's Jordan Davis.
What about the guy in Omaha that successfully shot and killed a guy that was trying to go on a shooting spree in the mall? Is it a good time to talk about gun rights then?
Yes, because it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of let's look at the pattern.
But that pattern looks at the
thousands.
The pattern looks at the guy that defended the lives of the mall and goes, well, that worked.
There's one. Now here's the 20, 30,000 on my side.
The problem is
keep adding over there and give me the examples you want.
We're talking about ones that made the media, and that's a big problem.
Shootings tend to make the media,
not justified shootings.
Even justified shooting.
No, very rarely. Very, very rarely. A lot of this stuff goes unreported because it's not popular.
But you can't shoot someone without the police getting involved. And as someone who's worked in the media, we tend to get very excited when it bleeds.
In Compton
it leads
all the time. How many times do you hear about gang shootings out of Compton? Yet we know people die every day out there.
You hear about
No, you don't. When's the last time you heard about a Compton shooting?
Watch L.A. News. You do hear about it.
You hear a flash on the local newscast, and that's it.
But isn't that then an argument for we've become so desensitized? Shootings can happen on a fairly regular basis.
That we have removed so much moral fiber and desensitized ourselves to such a point.
Well, there's no way. I mean, we're not capable as human beings of even understanding. 30,000 people shot in a year, and by the way, according to the Brady people, that's much higher.
Yeah, I got numbers in front of me. 66 from 2008.
66 people.
66,000.
66. I mean, we can't contemplate those numbers. We really aren't capable of dealing with large numbers very well.
I agree. I agree. We're desensitized.
Part of our brain.
I think a lot of this has to do with illegal gun owners. I would like to see the numbers between people that legally owned and possessed their firearms versus illegally, because the illegal guys are a different case. You would agree, right, that we can't, they're different. So we need to separate that to legal gun owners that committed crimes with that legally owned gun.
But let's just...
And then we can have an honest conversation about
lower the supply, because how many of those legal guns were stolen from the homes of legal gun owners?
The problem, though...
Who kept them in their nightstand or kept them in their underwear drawer, closet.
That's safety and training issue. You can't get to mine without a tornado, apparently. Mine is locked up in a safe that's got bars all around it, and it's in...
So in other words, I need to put a gun to your head to get you to open, or actually put a gun to a family member's head to get you to open the gun safe.
No, I'm going to let you blow their heads off. Because why would I open my gun safe to arm you so you could kill somebody else? That you're going to kill somebody, you might as well kill somebody.
I don't know,
But
man.
Why should I give you the gun?
I think most even gun owners want to avoid their cold, dead hands.
It is what it is. There's no way I can protect you if I can protect anybody if I give up my protection. So that's a false. Scenario.
I think absolutely guns are one of the things people look for when they rob. It only increases
But they're not
criminals' earning power.
Most guns are stolen when nobody's at home or from family members they know. They're not in hostile situations where there's a gun held.
But we even know, even when it's not outsiders involved, just having a gun in your home, you're more likely to be involved in a homicide or suicide. You're more likely to shoot one of your kids. Statistically, you are more likely to shoot one of your kids sneaking home late than a bad guy coming in to do harm.
That's still like saying you're more
to your
likely
family.
to eat a cheeseburger if you just bought 5 from McDonald's.
Okay, but a cheeseburger won't kill you and doesn't kill other people.
But you're making a.
And by the way, at the very least, you know what you can do? You can have a salad the next day and make up for eating a cheeseburger.
You're making ridiculous.
You never can take a bullet.
Statements.
Those aren't ridiculous statements. Those are facts.
It doesn't. The fact, of course, it's a fact. That's a stupid. That's like saying you're likely to prick yourself with a pin if you own a needle. Or whatever. I mean,
but what's the societal harm to needle ownership? Not very high. What is the societal harm?
You're likely to get pregnant if you have sex.
Ownership.
How about that? There's societal harm there. You're likely to get somebody pregnant if you have sex with them, right? I mean, that's.
I don't know. I've managed to avoid it.
Well, that maybe,
I wouldn't say you're likely.
I don't know. How many of your friends haven't managed to avoid it?
I'm trying to think if I know any.
Because I got a lot of oopsie friends. That's one of the results of having sex is you're likelier to have a baby.
Well, then
not.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you own a gun, you're likelier to have something happen with that gun than not.
But then we look at the benefits of sex, and if we want to spend an hour talking about that, I'm more than happy to. I have photos and videos and articles I can show you.
But this idea that you were in a sex video really bothers me.
No, not mine. Oh God, no. I need far better lighting. But what is the benefit to having sexual intercourse? It is wide and varied, and even in the Bible.
But now you're talking.
Now, if you look at what is the societal benefit to mass gun ownership, and that's what we were talking about before. When you look at violent crime, and you look at situations.
You can't undo it. It's not that it's a benefit. It's not that I don't agree with you that maybe
before we ban anything, before we limit anything, I've always been of the case. You need to argue it's societal harm. It's why I can differentiate between, say, same-sex marriage and polygamy because we have history.
What's the societal harm to polygamy?
You end up with a bunch of young men with no prospects for marriage, and if you want to know how that works out, ask the Middle East.
Well, but whose fault is that? The young men for not having good women skills,
No, it's when the women are taken up by generally older, well-established men in society who have far more resources. Again, we can look through history, and we know what polygamous
you're
culture is.
You're actually against polygamy, but you're for gay marriage.
Correct.
Wow.
Because there's no societal harm to gay marriage.
I love Sister Wives. I think it's great. It's a good show.
Terrible.
All right, end your show.
But
I'm tired of doing this.
I know. But there's a difference between.
Why do you do these to these shows?
By the way, the word hypocrite bugs me because it generally means you've said something I disagree with, and I'm too stupid to argue and articulate why. That's 99% of the time.
Fine, you're not a hypocrite. That issue seems hypocritical.
Why? They're two separate issues.
They're both revolving around marriage and the state's rights to define marriage.
Yeah, and I would say there is a societal harm.
I would say there is
polygamy.
societal harm to homosexual marriage.
I understand you'd make that argument. Luckily, most people disagree with you.
That's all right. And luckily, I don't think you would get great support that yours is better than polygamy. What does polygamy do? I don't care what.
I just explained to you what it does.
Yeah, but see, the problem is it's not going to spread. First of all, it's not really popular. People don't get. I'm not going to get another wife, whether it's legal or not, because I can barely handle the one I got.
I think that's most case. However,
I think polygamy isn't an issue in this country because nobody wants to be married in a.
Well, that's marriage. I don't think there's
so why
widespread.
Make it a law?
Well, I think there's widespread.
Why make it a law?
I don't think because you want to avoid situations like Warren Jeffs. and you want to avoid.
No, we have we have laws against Warren Jeff. You can't have sex with a 13-year-old. It's wrong.
Can if you're married to her.
No, you can't get married to her in this country.
In
Anywhere.
Kansas, you can. I think at 14, as long as the parents sign off.
And that's horrible laws. But that's another issue. So then we need to just define marriage to the point where marriage has to be against two consenting adults.
I would absolutely love that, but Ted Nugent would probably disagree with me.
Well, he will also apparently hook you up if you can find somebody more generous than him.
Yeah, I already did.
Which is totally legal right?
I totally did. Bill Gates gives far more away.
Good for society.
Than Ted Nugent.
I think you and Ted Nugent making that.
He called me a blood brother.
I was going to say, you could be more than just a blood brother, if you know what I mean.
All right. I got to scoot. I'm tired of proving Dan wrong.
Tired of your
causing you
arguments.
causing you to argue in circles and avoid my points. Anyway, we'll reconvene tomorrow. I'm sure we'll learn more about this Belcher story. We know, or at least we're hearing stories of prescription drugs and booze and head injuries that kind of are typical when it comes to professional football. But watch the reaction. And I understand I'm probably not going to change your mind on guns. I'm not going to change Dan's mind. But here's the takeaway for today. I think the knee-jerk reaction of, now's not the time, is telling that they don't want to have the argument. Maybe something in the back of their heads tells them they're not going to be on the winning side of it. And I say this again as someone for years who's been completely agnostic and don't care about guns until they're in my presence. But maybe it's time to reassess that. All right, email me, radiobradshaw@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/radiobradshaw. Go read the Jason Whitlock article. And go read some of the responses to Bob Costas. And maybe it's just time we as a nation have the talk. All right, be back tomorrow at 1:30. Go out, enjoy the absolutely gorgeous weather, and I'll see you tomorrow here on Webcast One Live. Thanks for watching.